From LA Times Studios, I'm Audrey Ngo. It's been more than a year since the Eaton and Palisades fires. And since then, Southern California Edison has focused on recovery initiatives to help those most affected. In fact, they just launched a new one-stop resource center designed to help Altadena community members navigate the rebuild and recovery process. To hear more about SCE's commitment to help communities recover and rebuild, I'm talking today with Edison International President and CEO, Pedro Pizarro. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Audrey.
I want to start with a little bit of a look back. It's been more than a year since the January 2025 wildfires. And how do you reflect on what those communities have been through?
It's heartbreaking. And it's our community. As Edison, we've been in the Southern California community for 140 years this year. I've been in the Pasadena area for almost 4 decades now. And so seeing our friends, our neighbors impacted has been really heartbreaking. And so we've been focused on ways to help. The first has been to help rebuild by building a stronger system, and including things like in Altadena, rebuilding with something like 63 miles of underground power lines. We established that to help people, help businesses move forward and do so more quickly. We not only have been in the community, but we will be in this community for the long term. So much of our team lives here, will volunteer here, will support the organizations to serve the community. And when I look back at the community, the people here, I get a lot of hope from the real progress that I see the community making, and pleased that we can work side by side with them.
For people and businesses who are directly impacted by the Eaton fire, how is SCE helping them? Can you get into some details there?
Yeah, I'll focus on the Wildfire Recovery Compensation Program, Audrey, because again, we see that as a way to accelerate the ability of people to rebuild their homes and rebuild their lives. And so we set up a voluntary compensation program. We have unfortunately had the experience of having had fires in the past and the litigation that's associated with that. Most of those cases have been settled. And so we designed this program to have settlement values that are similar to what we've seen in past wildfire lawsuits, but with a much more streamlined, fast approach. And so the program is offering several forms of compensation for people who are impacted, compensating for economic losses like property damage and business interruption, physical injury, compensating for non-economic losses like for personal impacts. There's, in addition to that, a direct claim premium for participating in the program that wouldn't be available under normal litigation. And then individuals and businesses can participate with or without the support of an attorney. For those who choose to use an attorney, there's also compensation to help support attorneys' fees. Program has been open for a few months now. It will be open through the end of November of 2026. It's easy to fill out the form. Typically, it's taking folks about 2 hours to complete a claim. That's been a main way to help provide economic compensation to help people rebuild more quickly.
And can you talk about what helped guide the actual design of the compensation fund? And how did you make sure that it was flexible for the different needs of the communities?
Yeah. Look, from the very beginning, it was really important to listen to the community in designing the program. And so we continued to partner with community organizations through engagements to do that. But we started off by seeking real experts to help provide perspectives on how to do this. And I know you'll be talking later, you mentioned with Ken Feinberg and Camille Byras. The two of them together bring more than 35 years of experience resolving complex disaster cases like the 9/11 fund that they helped to set up. Mm-hmm. And they've also advocated for impacted communities. And so bringing them on meant that helped us to make sure that the process was a fair one. We have had a guiding principle of the program having multiple options that can help cover most people. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. We engage RAND. I think many of your listeners will know RAND is a very respected nonprofit research organization. And they did an independent, very thorough evaluation of how our program is using a model that was developed by Compass Lexicon, another firm, to do the valuation of eligible properties, look at their value before the fire and after the fire. We had developed a protocol for what the program would look like, and in September of last year, we made that public, and we asked for input and feedback. And we had more than a dozen community workshops before launching. We got more than 1,000 different voices that provided input. We made several dozen changes to the program. So it's another way to reflect the community input. And in the end, end up with a program that provides support across multiple categories. I talked big picture already, but down in the details, it provides compensation for total and partial losses for single-family residences, total and partial loss for multifamily residences, coverage for both owners and tenants, commercial property losses, smoke and ash, business interruption, and of course, the tragedy of physical injuries and fatalities. So the way we structure the program and the way that we continue to monitor it has been rooted in listening to our public.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk about sort of a choice that a lot of people are having to make right now, which is deciding between traditional litigation and the compensation program that you've been speaking about. What would you tell them about the benefits of the compensation program when they're making this choice?
It's voluntary. You don't make a commitment until you decide whether you like it or not at the very end. It's fair and it's fast. Now, that's the headline. Digging into that a little bit more, traditional lawsuits can take years. And that creates uncertainty not only for a company, but more importantly, creates uncertainty and extends the time period, and it creates added cost for people who have been impacted. And so for individuals and businesses who need the help now, the program can offer a much faster path. We've already seen a number of folks in the community who have decided that this worked for them. And just to give you some numbers, you and I are talking in April. Listeners may be listening to us a little later. But as of now, we've had close to 3,000 claims that have been submitted. And many of those claims represent multiple individuals. So that's something like 8,700 individuals who are part of those 3,000 claims, as well as some trusts and legal entities. We have now extended, or SCE has extended nearly 1,300 offers to more than 3,200 claimants. Those offers have totaled more than $425 million. To date, checks have gone out for 266 claims paid to 518 claimants. That's total over $67 million, and it's increasing by the day. So you see that a number of folks have checked out the program. Again, it's no cost to check it out, about 2 hours, on average for filling out the application. And they've decided that program, worked for them. I will say that, maybe one more thought on the role of attorneys in this. Again, participants can engage in the program with or without an attorney. If they choose to have an attorney represent them, we pay an additional premium or amount of 20% of net damages to help support the attorney's fees. We've had, or SCE has had, a number of plaintiffs' attorneys that have engaged directly, have brought multiple clients with them, and are checking out the program. We even had one recently, Ben Crump, who's, I think, a well-known, respected attorney. He's particularly known for his engagement with the Black community nationally. I think he represented the estates of George Floyd, Trayvon Martin. And he represented some clients of his who decided that the program made sense for them, and they spoke out publicly about it. It is sad, however, that we've also seen examples where we're aware of plaintiffs' attorneys discouraging their clients from participating or checking out the program. Our team even heard directly from someone who chose to participate in the program, who showed us a letter that their prior attorney sent them, essentially dismissing them, they're declining to continue to represent them just because this individual had decided to participate. And so, we encourage people to check it out. There's no cost to it, there's no obligation, and it may work for you.
Can you give us some examples of possible scenarios or offers that people may receive?
Yeah, like, every situation is different. That's why the program has different kinds of compensation. It just really depends on a person's own experience, their losses. Give you examples. It can include help with things like property damage or business interruption or personal impacts. Uh, and of course, there's a premium for participating to the program. The offers can vary widely. So, for example, we've seen lower end offers for tenants, for renters with fairly limited damage, and there's been smaller offers. We've seen significantly larger offers for households or businesses that had more serious losses. So, a tenant household with smoke and ash damage might receive compensation in the six-figure range. A family who lost their home, those offers could go into the hundreds of thousands or even several $1 million, depending on the circumstances. So the key point here, though, is that this is based on individual situations. So that's why we're encouraging people to file a claim and check it out.
As recovery continues, how is SCE providing in-person support for the community members?
Staying connected with the community has been a priority from the very beginning, Audrey, and that means actively meeting people where they are. It's been really helpful to engage with community organizations in doing that. So examples, conversations that our team has had with the Altadena Town Council, with the Black clergy and other faith-based organizations, the local chapters of the NAACP, the Altadena Coalition of Neighborhood Associations, they're known as ACONA, along with the Altadena Chamber of Commerce. SCE also has a dedicated website that's updated regularly with the latest recovery and rebuilding information. You can reach SCE online through the disaster recovery webpage, or folks can call a dedicated phone line. I'll give you the phone number here. It's 800-250-7339. And our team can help with recovery questions and any electric restoration needs. You also mentioned the opening of the Altadena Rebuild Community Hub, ARCH. We love our acronyms, so that's ARCH. And that's a place where people can connect in person with SCE representatives. It's a one-stop shop. And it's a one-stop shop for both recovery and rebuilding. So in the building, there's advisors and planners who can help customers restore or plan for future electric service. They can answer account questions. They can provide guidance on things like meter locations or electric panel upgrades. There's also support for people who are in the middle of planning their home retrofits or how they're going to rebuild their home. Guidance on making homes more wildfire resilient and how you integrate clean energy options like solar and batteries and electric vehicle chargers, electric appliances. So, nothing beats being able to sit down with a human being face to face, and that's what ARCH is all about.
And you mentioned that on the website, you're updating it, very frequently. How are you keeping the Wildfire Recovery Compensation Program up to date?
I mentioned gathering input from over 1,000 voices before launch. Since then, we've continued to make some adjustments based on what people are experiencing and asking. And so, for example, earlier this year in February, SCE expanded the support for displaced renters and increased, housing assistance, strengthened help with legal expenses as well. Initially, we were providing a 10% amount, 10% of net damages. That's now 20%. Those updates took effect in February. We made those retroactive so that people who had already settled to the program also got the benefit of that change. And that just helped to remove barriers for people participating and made it easier for people to access the support. Look, at the core of this is that we're going to continue listening and we're adapting. We want to help people as recovery continues. We had a number of community panels that we've hosted. I participated myself in some of them, and we plan to have more of those over the course of the year.
What have these wildfires reinforced for you about the importance of wildfire mitigation and just building an overall more resilient energy system?
California has always had fires. My wife grew up in California. She remembers fire when she was a young girl living in Tujunga. But back then they were called forest fires because it was a forest and not that many people lived there. Now we talk about the wild and urban interface. And we recognize that it's not only the impact of more and more people living at that interface or deep into high wildfire risk areas, but it's also climate change that's going to make the potential impacts more severe as we see more extreme weather. And so for us, that's really underscored the importance of SCE's wildfire mitigation plan and the need to continuously improve that as we learn more, as we see new tools that pop up to become available to help make our infrastructure more resilient. For utilities like Southern California Edison, what does that mean? Well, it's hardening the grid. Since the 2017 fires, SCE has really revamped how it thinks about wildfire mitigation and done a number of changes to its infrastructure, kind of redesigning the airplane as it's been flying. Designing systems that can withstand more extreme heat and storms and the fires that result from that. We know that the risk of wildfire can never go to zero. We'll never be able to eliminate it, but we want to get it as close to zero as possible. So SCE files wildfire mitigation plans, and they get updated annually. The 2026 to 2028 WMP, Wildfire Mitigation Plan, focuses on reducing wildfire risks, increasing and improving emergency preparedness and response, safeguarding our communities. And this includes things like changing out bare wire in high fire risk areas with insulated wire, covered conductor. SCE has changed over more than 7,000 miles of wire in its high fire risk areas in the last 6 or 7 years. Added up more equipment, monitoring equipment, high definition cameras, weather stations, the careful use of public safety power shutoffs. So all of these are ways baked into the wildfire mitigation plan that continue to improve with new technology, but that are focused on continuing to learn, continuing to redesign, and continuing to help mitigate risk.
Pedro Pizarro, CEO and President of Edison International, thank you so much.
Thank you, Audrey.